take a situation. You are getting married, and now that you are a big officer, so your father-in-law decides to give you big gifts. He wants to gift you one bungalow, one car, and a lot many things. And he insists that this is not some kind of a dowry, but rather a gift to his daughter or his son-in-law. So, what would be your stand?
Ma'am, I would first try to understand what is the reason why he is giving me so many gifts. I will talk to my parents as well and talk to my wife, so to understand what is the motivation or intention behind those gifts. If it has anything which can hamper my professional work, then I would refuse that particular.
Let me put you in a situation. Let's say you are an IPS officer, and in your city there are two immediate situations which got arises. One is that there is a girls' college where some goons are basically planning to do acid attack. It is certain that they will do it because they have done it before also. And at the other part of the city, there is a mob lynching which is being planned. That is also certain. Now you are there, and if you have to, give a preference to one such incident where you will place yourself, then what would it would be? Where you would like to go?
So both the incidents in hand are really serious. The acid attack is abhorrent and deplorable, to say the least. And mob lynching can have a very deep impact. It can disturb the communal harmony or other such harmony of the social setting. Even if I'm not physically present in one particular area, I'll make sure that adequate steps are taken. Like in the girls' college, I'll make sure
you would go. You cannot be present at the both situation at the same time. So what will be your preference? You can send your subordinate, but where you will place yourself?
So I'll take turns to visit both the places. But
first, where you will go first?
So that would be dependent on the, so to say, the time of...
both the things are happening at the same time. You cannot time it.
So I'll go to a place where my personal presence can make a greater difference.
That
will depend on the operational... so I'll go to the place of mob lynching. Because
Why?
I believe that in the case of acid attack, I can ensure that the subordinates can cordon off the area and take all the girls to a safer place. That is a task which is doable by a force and a subordinate who's responsible. In the area of mob lynching, I believe my personal presence can make a better difference.
What kind of difference it will make?
So first of all, I'll make sure that if the people should not be on the streets or so to say in the run.
No, that is a corrective measure you will take. What kind of difference it will make by your presence?
So proper communication and...
Okay, fine.
Now that you are a member of the civil services, why it is happening that engineers are aspiring to become civil servants only? They are not pursuing their future in the core engineering?
So the first thing is the employability issue, I'll say. The kind of engineering graduates we are producing, their employability is very less. Second thing is, as an engineer, we can help in the administration in a lot of ways.
That's okay, that's a personal choice. But my concern is more of the engineers getting passed out from the universities, engineering colleges and prestigious engineering colleges, and still choosing to opt for the civil services. So apart from serving the country and all that, what is the real reason? Now that you are a member of the civil services, that is why I am asking you this question.
So the respect which is associated with the civil services, that attracts a lot of graduates, and engineering graduates are also, because of this, they are entering. And I'll say in the kind of exam civil services has turned into, it is in a way engineering graduates are able to come into this, the prelims paper which is there, the logical reasoning which is coming up, it is helping a lot of engineering graduates to clear this exam.
Shreyans, since you studied anthropology and you said you studied human development with great interest, tell me, what are anthropological bases of patriarchy?
So when during the course of evolution, what has happened that the erect posture came upon human beings, and because of that the birth canal shortened, and the human babies started to come out as underdeveloped children. So the woman at that time had to take care of the children. So that particular thing led to a culture or a society in which division of labor had to happen, and in many society that particular thing led to patriarchy.
And you agree by the theory, or you believe there are some shortcomings in it?
The theory as per se is valid for many societies, but there are many societies where we see matriarchy as well, or let's say egalitarian societies as well. So in some parts the theory is correct.
If we agree to the main aspects of this theory, it appears that the cost of development of Homo sapiens into erectus and a big skull human being was borne by women of the society.
Yes.
Do you believe that anthropology is unjust to women?
I don't think so. Anthropology as such,
human development is unjust to women.
that is how it has happened biologically, you can say. But now with our rationality in the society, we are able to identify that such thing has happened, and now we are trying to make sure that all the injustices are taken care of and empowerment of women happens.
But if we look at our role as society and as a political class against the women reservation bill in the parliament, it appears that we are not adequately prepared to compensate for what we did in the past.
So I think the change will have to come from the society itself, and slowly as we can see, there are social reformers who are pushing towards it, and we need to generate the consensus and the political will to ensure that the much needed thing is done.
Do you believe if we had women in the leadership position for say another 2 decades after Indira Gandhi, we might have been in a different pedestal on gender justice thing?
So woman leader at the top would have given role models to many women, and they would have come out and made sure that they are able to get their rights. So that would have definitely helped. But at the top it is one thing, but the movement has to come from the grassroots as well. So it has to be a balance of both. So that would have definitely helped.
Thank you, Shreyans. Dr. Taj.
Question to you. I am giving a hypothetical situation.
All right, sir.
You are already a member of Indian Administrative Service. You are in a working post. You are known for your honesty and integrity, and people speak very good of you about your fairness, about your balanced decisions, about your neutrality, everything, all good things about you. During the course of your work, you find that your subordinates start speaking about your family members. Somebody in your family is taking advantage of your position to make money in your name. How will you deal with this situation? And that person is so close to you, if you confront him or her directly, probably your family relationship will be greatly affected. How will you deal with this situation?
Sir, I have 2 situations in hand in this case. The first is that my professional image is at stake. I have, like you said, that it is that I have been working honestly. So I need to make sure that this image continues. Other side, as you said, that the family member is close to me. But I will make sure that I talk to the family member, however close it is, and try to make him understand this fact that no advantage should be taken in my name whatsoever.
But if he or she doesn't understand?
No, sir, I'll try to convince the person, and in case if the things really go out of control, I will also take some action, whichever suits lawfully.
Okay, thank you very much, Srishti. Your interview is over.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Shreyans, continuing with your anthropology, seeing that you have special interest in it, tell me, what are the changes in cranial space from the starting of human species till now?
So if we look at our ancestors, let's say the apes, they were around, they were having the cranial capacity of around 200 to 400 cubic centimeters. And currently what we have is around 1200 to 400 cubic centimeters. In between there were Neanderthals who had cranial capacity of more than us. They're around 1500 cubic centimeters. Apart from that, how the shape of the skull has changed is that the prognathism has reduced. We now have flatter faces. Apart from that, you can say this is called the medulla. I am forgetting the term. That has gone downward and backward. So earlier, what used to happen is an animal or an ape would have this. If this is the head, then this spinal cord will be like this.
Vertebra.
Vertebra will be like this, and now we have erect posture. So that has changed. So that has continuously helped us to be bipedal in nature and to be able to see farther things and help us in hunting. And these changes have helped us grow as a species.
Okay. Which do you consider is the more important event of evolution? Cultural revolution, agricultural revolution, or cognitive revolution? You have read *Sapiens*.
Yes, I have. I would say the major gulf which was created between animals and humans was the domestication of fire, because it helped us grow our brains, and at the same time it led to enormous power in the hands of humans.
But I asked you to choose between agricultural revolution, cultural revolution, or cognitive revolution.
Yes, so I'm saying that the cognitive revolution which happened after this will be the best one, I would say.
Junaid, you must have heard of terrorist attacks on mosques in Christchurch, New Zealand.
Yes, sir.
The prevailing situation, world situation, with all kinds of hatred, jingoism, where do you see this world after 10 years?
Sir, it's a cycle, I'll say. The globalization, it unleashed a wave of migration. Borders were open and people moved into different parts. And a backlash came in where the original communities, they felt some problematic thing is there with these migrants. But for things to come up, there should be like a discussion or debate on these things. Now people are debating at least these things, that what is wrong happening, whether migrants are good or not. These things are coming up. So I don't think that in 10 years the world will be in a bad phase. These things will get solved and they'll get fizzled, and we will be better placed than what we are today.
You are quite optimistic about the future of
Yes,
the world. Okay, thank you very much, Junaid. Your interview is over. You may go now.
Okay. You are also from Rajasthan.
Yes, ma'am.
I find that Rajasthan's culture is full of gender discrimination. There is feticide, there is infanticide, there was a social evil of sati. Till now there is violence against women, dowry, and lot many things. And still people say that Rajasthan has a rich culture. Convince me that Rajasthan has a rich culture. I don't feel so.
Ma'am, all these things that you are saying, that women of the Rajasthan are marginalized, they have not been given equal rights in the society. I would agree with that. That has been there in the past, and slowly we are changing. We have taken many steps. You can see the child sex ratio has improved. The PCPNDT Act has been enforced with greater extent. And at the same time, I would say the culture of Rajasthan has, this thing has a bearing on the culture of Rajasthan. But if we look at the culture of Rajasthan independently, it is a very rich culture. If you can look at the example of conservation of forest from the Bishnoi community, it was Amrita Devi Bishnoi ji who led the conservation of the khejri trees at that time. Apart from that, there have been many poets like Mirabai from Rajasthan who opposed Sati Pratha and continued to be a cultural heritage for us.
Good. Now let's
Studied from AMU initially, and even your current address suggests that you have some connection with Jamia Millia Islamia. Recently, we have seen hostilities against both these institutions, AMU as well as Jamia. It's not the case with India only. The fact is that such attack is visible in many countries. In India, it is more so. What do you believe is the reason of hostility against diversity, particularly against the minorities?
Particular to the
Against Muslims, to be precise.
Sir, the first thing is the erosion of culture, which recently attack happened in New Zealand, and the theory which he gave was the great replacement, that their culture is being eroded by the invaders and by the migrants who come in. So certain section of people feel that there is a threat from the other community, and because of that they take in. Second, I'll say that particularly about AMU and Jamia, the reservation policy which is there, these are minority institutes and they don't provide reservation. So because of that, there was a backlash, and incidents like Jinnah portrait was there in AMU, and due to it a backlash happened. But I think this is more of political in nature. Whenever elections comes in, these kind of issues arise. In general, I don't think there is such an issue, sir.
Okay.
You are a Jain.
Yes, ma'am.
So there is I have seen that many Jain sadhus who are very young, Bal sadhus, there is a practice of Bal sadhu. What do you think of that practice?
Ma'am, if a person attains vairagya, detachment from the world, it can be at any age. So if it is done by the person himself, with his voluntariness, then there is no issue with it. But if it forced upon him.
So do you think that a child so young, 5 years, 6 years, 9 years, is capable enough to understand whether he or she has vairagya or not?
Ma'am, the development of mind takes place at an early stage. So it is different for everyone, I would say.
Okay.
So